Hello and welcome back to Books, Cats, and Chaos, the podcast where we explore epic tales, sprinkle in a bit of humor, and embrace the life of wrangling cats and all of the chaos that they create every day.
While reading books.
Yes. My name is James.
And I'm Casey, and we are a husband and wife team, if you couldn't guess, who love all things books, cats, brews, and the fun chaos in between.
This week, we are going to dive into our last chapters of Throne of Glass. It's the final challenge, the final duel, and we're going to find out who comes out on top, because I guarantee you things are not going to go the way that you think they're going to go. As a recap, just so everyone's on board, we're going to go right into each chapter, give a little bit of a quick review, and then we'll deep dive into it, talk about some of the things that we noticed, explore some of the questions that we have, and, we're just going to take it from there. There will be no spoilers or cross discussions with ACOTAR or Crescent City. No mass multiverse, massiverse, any of that stuff. But if you have, theories about what you think's going to happen at the end of the book, hey, throw them over. If, let's talk about it.
Yep. We do this because husband is not finished reading Throne of Glass series, and he's not read ACOTAR or Crescent City, so we didn't want to spoil anything for him. And this is for you viewers and listeners who also have not read any of these series. We know that there are other podcasts out there that do those deep dives into all three, but we wanted to keep this as spoiler-free as possible for everyone that is new to this world. So, content reminder, this podcast is actually for adults only, as we do end up cussing quite a bit sometimes. And we also, discuss adult topics and themes. So if you have any little ones running around, please save this podcast for later.
Or invest in some headphones.
Not everyone has that option when watching children.
All you need is one AirPod. That's it.
All right, so we have quite a bit of chapters in this final stretch. Are you ready to head on over?
Yeah.
All right. We are starting with chapter 47. The final duels are to be held outdoors, where it's really freezing per the king's random order. Or is it not so random? Parrington and Keltane slip poison into Celaena's wine cup and outmarch the final contestants. Celaena comes out, led by Kale, all dressed in black, looking awesome. Cain emerges from behind the clock tower, already dressed in royal guard colors, and has a beautiful sword at his side. Favoritism much? Nehemia came out to support Celaena, and Dorian took up his spot next to the sponsors and council members. For the duel, there is to be no killing, only trapping the opponent in a position of sure death. The king announces the lineup, mentioning only Cain by name, and announcing the other three by their sponsor's name. Favoritism, once again. First to duel is Cain and Renault, then Grave and Celaena. Renault put up a fight, but only lasted about 3 minutes in the ring with Cain. As Celaena gets ready for her fight with Grave, Kale starts to hand her his sword, but Nehemia interjects and hands Celaena her staff with the iron tip. And she says, and I quote, "Let it be with an Elway weapon that you take them down. Let wood from the forest of Elway defeat steel from Adderland. Let the king's champion be someone who understands how the innocent suffer." Dorian catches this transaction and his eyes darken. Did he realize the symbolism from Nehemia? The king commands the second duel to commence, and Celaena steps into the circle. Dun dun dun.
Off to a great start, really.
Yeah. So, as much as I liked Nehemia stepping in and being like, defeat these men with this staff, with this wood, and kick their ass and everything, and kind of like this slap to the king, I'm kind of torn because she's going to be up against Cain, who is much bigger than what he started out at the start of the competition. So wouldn't the sword be the wiser choice? Like, why bring a staff to a sword fight when you know you have to go up to this monster of a guy?
You know, I can see two different two different ways with that, because obviously, yeah, a sword versus a sword is
Sword versus a sword? Oh, yeah, no, sorry. I get what you mean.
yeah.
That was my confusion.
We're off to a great start.
I need more coffee.
A sword versus a sword seems like an obvious choice because they're both metal. They're both, somewhat the same shape. Maybe one's bigger than the other, depending. But there's always the risk that somebody can wield the sword better, and swords can be a bit unwieldy if you don't have a lot of that upper body strength. And a staff traditionally is a two-handed weapon, and the way you fight with a staff is completely different than you fight with a sword. The movements are different, the defense is different. You do get put at a disadvantage because if you're using a wooden staff versus like if you were using a metal staff, right? You can't really block the sword with it like straight on, because then it'll split the wood eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're good with the weapon, a staff is a great tool for deflecting attacks. So if a person swings a sword down at you and you're able to pull the staff in and kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. If you take the staff and kind of run it on the side, and then you can kind of like redirect the way the sword is, staff is much more fluid of a fighting style versus a sword where you're very much like slash, stab, stab. You have to really know what you're doing. So a staff isn't necessarily a disadvantage if you know how to wield it.
I think yes. I think like some going up against somebody like Grave or Renault or even like Kale, like a normal average everyday person, a staff would be a great weapon, a great tool if you know how to use it. I just happen to think if you're going up against somebody like Cain, who has been siphoning, power, strength, whatever from all these champions and using the word marks and everything, that you would want every advantage you could get.
I mean, there is that, but there's also Celaena is going into this already knowing that she can't get hit by him. Sword or not, blocking or not, she can't afford to get hit full force. So I kind of feel like it wouldn't matter whether she was using a sword or a staff, because at the end of the day, she is not going to really be able to withstand a direct blow either way. I mean,
yeah.
So, the staff probably puts her at a disadvantage, but Nehemia probably has no doubt in her mind that she can take on Cain, and so it's kind of like, I'm so confident in what I'm gonna do. I don't need a sword to beat you. Like insult to injury, sort of like kind of thing. And apparently Celaena feels the same way because she takes the staff and she doesn't fight it. But I think logistically it doesn't matter, and I think she knows that she can't afford to get hit.
Yeah. Do you think Nehemia was only thinking about the symbolism of her staff against the King of Adarlan? You think she trusted Celaena's abilities that much, even against Cain?
I think she did. I think part of it was the symbolism. definitely. But I think too that she probably wouldn't have offered it if she thought it was gonna throw the fight against Celaena's favor.
Mm.
But I think that she had that faith that Celaena was gonna. It wouldn't matter if she had the staff, a sword, a dagger. That she would find a way because, I mean, she fought a Ridderak and lived.
True.
So obviously she knows how to survive, and probably that is exactly what she's thinking. Like, she'll figure it out. Doesn't matter what her weapon is, because honestly, none of them are really going to do her much good anyway.
Yeah.
So might as well just, let the king and everyone know this is a statement. Boom. Like,
I wish we could have gotten a little bit of like Dorian insight here too. When they mention he catches their interaction and he sees, Nehemia give her the staff and she takes it and his eyes darken. Like, I want to know what his thoughts were like. Oh shit, is my dad gonna do something right now? Did my dad see this? And is he taking it as a threat? Or
yeah,
is my dad not even paying attention because they're beneath him? Like, I would have loved to have gotten some Dorian
something.
insight.
Right.
So it sounded like, and I don't think we really got any insight as to where Grave and Renault came out of. I'm assuming probably kind of from the same corridor or doors that Celaena came out of, from the castle to their little fight ring. Only Cain was mentioned stepping out from behind the clock tower. You think there was any like meaning behind that? Do you think he was like doing his wyrdmark stuff, preparing for this?
I wouldn't be surprised because, I mean, he obviously has some connection or fascination or something with this clock tower, and it wouldn't be surprising if he was behind there, gathering his strength or clearing his head, or just connecting with whatever dark forces are apparently in league with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was just doing classic Cain villain stuff.
Classic villain stuff. I love it. All right, you want to lead us into the fights?
All right, so within 2 minutes, Celaena has Grave on the ground, staff at his neck, shocking everyone. Just bang, bang, boom. She's like, I don't have time for you. Boom. And the king then announces that it's basically halftime, right? So he's like, it's wine time. And Cain hands out the wine goblets to Cain, then to Celaena. The king smiles at Celaena while she drinks. After a dramatic little speech, Cain collects the empty goblets, and the king announces that it's time for the final duel, and there's no rest in between. They got to gulp down some wine, and then they're right back into it. As soon as she steps into the ring, Celaena is starting to feel dizzy and nauseated. She, musters up, rallies all that she's got. She goes on the offensive, and Cain is able to knock her swings aside like he's toying with a cat. Like, just like, are you even trying? Like, And at some point, she hears Cain laughing, and she realizes that she didn't just drink wine, she drank bloodbane. And of course, Cain knows. And Celaena now realizes that she needs to end this fight now before she starts hallucinating. Because the bloodbane is, as we learned in the last one, not good stuff. She tries her best, but Cain ends up breaking the staff in two, leaving her with a piece of wood. And yeah, this is what we talked about, the staff, being not a great choice, but if she had a sword, he would have just knocked it out of her hands. Like, she was,
I want to know, like, was there some sort of unspoken rule, since we didn't get really any rules, is that the contestants couldn't change their weapon of choice for each round? Like, obviously, Cain went up his first round with a sword, and Celaena went up with her first round with a staff. Like, why did they have to be locked into those? Like, why couldn't they eye up their opponents and be like, nah, I need to change tactics, I need to change weapons? Like,
maybe they could, and just maybe.
She wanted to keep with the staff.
Yeah, and I mean, Kane's not going to. Sword's effective. Why would he change? Like,
true.
He probably just wasn't worth noting, because who knows?
I would have been like, I made my notice here with the first round with the staff. Okay, thank you, Nehemia. Kill, give me the sword.
Right. Meanwhile, Dorian is watching and knows immediately that something is wrong. She had an opportunity to deal a winning blow and she failed. He battles with himself. He should stop this because clearly now she's in danger. He should help her, but if he does, the king would probably claim Cain as the victor, which kind of feels like everyone is banking on. They've already pretty much set him up to be the victor, right? So Kale's in distress watching her. He hears Cain taunt Celaena, and as he says, "And what would your father say?" and keeps taunting her about her parents, about their death, how she woke between them, covered in their blood. Celaena forgets about her pain for a moment, gets up to attack, only for Cain to kick her in the ribs, sends her flying back into the clock tower. And that's a direct hit that she did not need. Hallucinating or not, or she's not hallucinating yet, but drugged or not,
no,
she did not need that hit. Cain drags her back into the circle. She's starting to hear voices, otherworldly voices calling her a different name, a dangerous name. She notes that Cain could have pointed his sword at her at any time, calling the duel done, but he didn't. This is not a duel. This is a game. It's an execution, and no one's going to do anything about it. Cain throws her against the wall of freezing stone, and that's when she sees a dead man, pale, rotting, red eyes, but then she is thrown back into the circle. Cale is telling her, commanding her basically, get up, get up, get up. As she starts to, she's slammed into the clock tower again. Two creatures stared back at her this time, one with wings. It came at her, and suddenly they were all over the place. They're coming after her, calling for her, trying to drag her into their realm. The clock tower is a portal, from what she's seeing. Cain comes after her, and her vision wavers between this dark world and the real world. Two sides of a coin. It's like dark death and then sun and life on the other side. She throws herself back as Cain reaches. He snags the eye of Elena, ripping it from her neck. The bloodbane fully gets control of her mind, and she's hurled into the darkness and the army of the dead, and the eye of Elena is dropped to the ground.
Damn.
She's not having a good time.
No, not at all. I have to say, did Celaena learn nothing from the poisons test? Like, what kind of assassin is she that she would just drink wine that's been sitting out without smelling it first? Not even with the poisons test, but just as a trained assassin. Like,
on one hand, I think about that as like, so yeah, she should have at least realized there was something in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, would it have even mattered if she had? Because I could see her, if she realized that there was bloodbane in it, then being faced with a choice: do I pretend to drink this and then the king be insulted that I refuse the wine from the king, and that's a whole nother problem? Or do I at least drink this knowing that I've got about 30 seconds before this crap starts versus where, she had no idea. But I think regardless, that poison was going down. Like,
Yeah, that's a hard call because, yeah, the king could be like, you insulted me. Cain is the winner. You're in the dungeons or whatever. Or what would there have been a way where she could have been like, no, I smell something. I need somebody to taste test this before I drink it. And like,
I mean, yeah, then they could have just shifted the blame over to Caltaine and been like, Caltaine, you served the wine. Did you mess with it? And that, could have been a whole thing.
yeah.
And that could have been, but at the end of the day, like, it could go one way, it could go the other. I do agree. I think she just had that test.
Yeah.
She should have
Stopped
and been like, this is a little suspicious.
Yeah. And even just pretending to take a mouthful and then like choking and spitting it out, like, oops, sorry. I got a tickle in my throat. It happens. I don't know. For as trained as she is, like these little things just kind of bug me. I love Celaena, but like, you should have known better.
Yeah, it's another one of those things that really makes you question whether she is as good of an assassin as you're led to believe, because she keeps falling into these really stupid little things.
Yeah.
People sneaking into her room at night,
Dorian.
not figuring out this thing over here, and then the point, like, she's making rookie mistakes. And that if Arabin was here, he'd be like, you are not the protege that I trained. Like,
right. I get that she's been, a slave for a year, but 3-4 months, like, this should be coming back to you. This should be second nature.
Yeah. And I really want to know what the idea was behind the poison. Like, Cain is already so big and a monster, right? And they're going so far to, put him in the royal colors and basically saying, Cain's our dude, and this is all formality, right? Going so far as to throw the fight with poison. So, did they legitimately think that she was an actual threat and that she could win, or was this just humiliation because of who she was and the fact that Dorian picked her as his champion? And you know what I mean? Like, I really want to know.
I think it was both, because Parrington likes to have all his ducks in a row and he wants to make sure of his intended outcome. And that's what it sounded like when he was talking to Caltaine, and trying to manipulate her into agreeing to be the one to poison her. I think he just has to have total control over a situation. And yes, everyone can just take a look at Cain and be like, oh yeah, he's the immediate victor. No doubt about it. But Parrington is like, no, there's still that chance, there's still that percentage. If we poison her, then the odds are even more in our favor. I have to do this in order to secure who I want to win. And also probably, like, yes, she is Ederland's assassin. She was this young girl taking out all these people for so long. Yeah, let's knock her down another peg. Why not? We have this opportunity. Might as well drag her down even further before eliminating her completely.
Yeah. Just completely shatter, like, all sense of anything. And then she goes back to the mines and she's already broken again.
Yeah. I want to know, was it intentional for the king to have them duel right away so the effects of the poison could take place while they're fighting versus like giving them time to rest, or especially Celaena time to rest, and then something happening before the fight begins, like her hallucinating before the fight begins? Does the king know about the poison, or was he just not wanting to give Celaena any recovery time?
I can't imagine him not knowing about the poison. Like,
Yeah.
he seems so like smug about the whole thing.
I mean,
Just
he was watching her drink it, so
yeah, and because if he had waited, then the drug would have kicked in before the fight, and then there would have been a reason to postpone the fight. Could have
yeah.
been like, oh, something happened. What happened? Oh, Caltaine poisoned them, and then the whole thing kind of gets thrown off. But if she's
True.
already fighting,
But see, he could have also been like, oh, you can't be my champion. You didn't detect the poison in the wine. You just drank it and got poisoned. That's not good enough for being the king's champion. Caltaine's or Kane's the winner.
I mean,
And then he could have quietly shipped her back off to Endovir.
yeah, it seems like they are doing everything they can to put her at the disadvantage. You know, just knock her down as far as possible, so that there is just no way for her to come out of this as the winner.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, she's having a hard time. She's having these visions, and I'm guessing the way that when I was reading this, I was basically figuring it was like she was reliving the nightmare of when she was a kid. Scary. Her parents were killed, and when you're a kid, your mind doesn't always process all that stuff realistically. And that's kind of the way I was looking at it, was like she's being haunted by her childhood nightmares, and that's why she's seeing these things, chasing her, demons and the dead people. And
I was thinking it was more of like the Riddled, since she just battled that and it had to do with like the word marks and stuff. So I figured there had to be more. So maybe a combination of her reliving her childhood trauma and everything, and then seeing more creatures of the Riddled, because that would haunt me.
I
I'd be
mean,
dreaming of that crap all the time.
well, yeah, and I mean, it's worth pondering. Was she simply having hallucinations about nightmares and things that were in her mind, or does being drugged or poisoned or whatever somehow open up your senses to these otherworldly? Because we go back to Caltaine, and she's just doped up on the opium, and she swears that she's seeing things coming around Cain. And like, did she just happen to hallucinate that as well, or does this stuff open your senses up to these
The otherworldly.
creatures that are very much in their world, but kind of imperceptible? Or
I mean, it kind of sounds like it does open the mind up to being able to see, like, what's behind the veil sort of thing. Because, I mean, the eye of Elena gets ripped from Celaena, and the moment it does and it's no longer touching her, the bloodbane, like, takes full effect. So up to this point, they're fighting, and she's fighting the poison, and she's seeing things, but she's still able to fight back. But, like, the moment it gets ripped from her, the poison is all over her, and now she's seeing all of these monsters and everything.
it's the first real indication that we see that the eye actually does something
Yeah, yeah.
other than just glow.
Um, I just wanted to mention too. So remember at the beginning of the book when we first meet Cain through Celaena, and she mentions like to Dorian and Kale, or maybe she doesn't mention it to them, but she's thinking to herself like, This guy's already big.
Mm-hmm.
One punch from him, and I'm gone. And now she's getting the crap beat out of her, and he's however many times as big now from siphoning, all the powers and everything. How is she not gone after one punch? Because he's clearly just like pummeling her and kicking her, and she's not. She's still fighting, sort of.
I mean,
But
he kicked her hard enough that she flew back into the tower.
yeah,
And I'm just in my head, I'm imagining, the Spartan kick, like, and she just flew across,
yeah.
yeah, how she's even conscious, I don't, maybe the bloodbane worked in her favor at that point and it disconnected her from the pain enough that she didn't,
Yeah.
I mean, drugs,
there is something for that.
I don't know.
So I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, but for those that are doing the reread or anything, or maybe you can answer this too, since you have read this book and now you're going back and doing this podcast, the demons and stuff that are calling her names, and they're calling her a different name, a dangerous name. Did that catch you? Did that flag you on your first read? Or were you just like, oh, they're demons, they're just whatever, disorienting her, trying to.
No, when I first was reading through it and it made me curious. I was like, oh, I wonder. That's why I was figuring it was nightmares from her past. And I was like, it would not be unlikely that her name would be different now, especially if she woke up between her dead parents. She probably is not, whatever her name is now is probably not what it was when she was 8 years old. And, that's kind of just where I figured what it was, just nightmares, because that was a very traumatic event of being chased out of her home. And
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, the battle continues in chapter 49. Dorian watches with terror as Celaena thrashes on the ground, trying to fight things that everyone else just can't see. He suspects there might be something in the wine, but again, any interference on his end, even calling out about the wine, would disqualify Celaena and give Cain the win. He tells Kel to stop the fight, but Kel is frozen, watching Celaena thrash about. Nehemia steps up beside Dorian as Cain attacks and Celaena tries to get away. Dorian notices that Nehemia has said something softly in Elway, and in the folds of her cloak, her fingers are making symbols in the air. Celaena tells herself, I will not be afraid, as she tries to find her way back to reality. She would find a way to fight. It would not end like this. A demon came at her, and Celaena screamed, a plea. Taken off guard, the demon retreated. Cain motioned it forward again, but before it could advance, doors, so many different types of doors, burst open, and Elena swept down, cloaked in golden light. Cain raises his sword at Celaena, but Elena charged through the dead demons. Cain was sent sprawling to the ground, his sword flying. For the onlookers, a mighty gust of wind roared through the veranda, making them shield their faces. This whole scene, up to this point, I need to see this as either a live action or an anime. I want to see all these weird doors opening and then Elena just flying through in her battle gear. And then everybody else is like, what the hell's going on? There's just wind going. I need HBO to dump all the money on this. Anyways, Elena in armor, a crown of stars on her head, tells Celaena that she can't protect her, can't give her strength. Then what is she doing there? But she can take the poison from her. Elena's fingers tracing Celaena's brow. Again, something with her brow. The wind continued to whip around, keeping Cain in place. The head of the staff, the iron tip part, came rolling to Celaena through the wind. The queen continued to trace marks on Celaena's brow, letting her know that once the poison is gone, that Celaena will no longer see her or the demons. Cain looks to the king as he retrieves his sword. The king nods. Elena stands between him and Celaena. Another symbol form, blue light from Elena, bites into Cain. Pain replaces the panic Celaena feels. Elena commands her to stand before disappearing, and the world suddenly appears. Struggling and shaking, Celaena stands. So now we are... The battle is finally starting to turn a little bit.
So just going back through that part, actually, Elena tells her that once the poison is gone, she will no longer see her or the demons. So that right there leads you more to believe that being drugged or poisoned makes you more receptive to the other world.
Yes.
Right?
Which is why so many shamans end up using drugs and stuff in order to connect to spirit worlds.
Yeah. So we're thinking that Celaena was not just fighting nightmares, but she was actually fighting. She was
demons.
stuck between two worlds, and nobody else could see it.
No.
You know.
Yeah. Yes.
So could they have harmed her first of all, or was it just was it enough that she could see them, but like could they actually do her harm, or was it more of like she's so entranced in that then Cain could have just come up and been like, "Chup."
That's a good question. I mean, Elena was able to knock Cain around, and she was in that in-between world. So if she's in the in-between world and the demons are in the in-between world, I would think the demons could cause damage. I'm trying to read through the notes really quick. I mean, Cain was sent sprawling to the ground from this mighty wind, but the wind is Elena.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a little different when you casting like energy at a person versus like if she had taken her sword and like swiped at Cain, would it cut him, or would it just feel like a psychic blow? You know what I mean? I'm guessing like physical damage versus mental damage, or you know what I mean? Damage is damage, like spiritual, physical, whatever. I just curious like how much more danger Celaena was in with these other creatures, or was it more of a distraction so that Cain could get in there and get her without her, really being able to defend?
That's a good question.
If anybody has an idea about that, please let us know.
Yes. I think this was a big risk for Nehemia too. Even though she kept it quiet, she kept it to herself and her fingers like hidden within her cloak folds and stuff. But if the king had seen her or heard her or even sensed anything, like she could have been accused of magic and he would have killed her, because magic's not allowed. If it's the wyrdmarks and stuff. So Nehemia gets a bright gold star. But
yeah, right.
I mean, it took one woman to stand up and try to do something for Celaena, and both Kale and Dorian are frozen. And I get that both men don't have any magical, mystical ties that Nehemia does with the wyrdmarks and the word gate and all of that. And Dorian politically, hands are tied because his father's an ass and, we don't want to give the win to Cain. But
even Kale, though, I mean, he is the captain of the guard of the king. He can't just go against the king.
Yeah.
He risks not only him, but his whole family being, killed in retribution for breaking the rules. So, like, on the one hand, you sit there and you're like, come on, one of you guys, like, this is an unfair fight, do something. But on the other hand, it's like, they can't without risking literally everything.
Yeah.
And it puts them, I'm sure, both of them into a position. Oh, we got cat, but it puts them both into a position of frustration because they want to help, but they literally can't. You cannot go against the king. And
Yeah.
Nehemia, we see, if she didn't have the ability to do these word marks that she apparently has, she wouldn't have been able to do anything either. It's not like she could have run out into the middle of the battlefield and been like, no, stop. It was literally because she had this ability to do whatever she's doing. We're assuming some sort of protection spell, or something.
I want to know if. Okay, so Dorian's hands are tied because he is the crown prince, heir to the throne, and he's Celaena's sponsor, so he can't speak up. You have Kale, who's her trainer, captain of the guard. He can't speak up. But Nehemia's not anything other than, Princess of Elway. She has no ties to Celaena. And she's there as kind of an ambassador, between Elway and Adderlin and everything. Could she have spoken up and been like, I think something is wrong. Something needs to be done. I call this an unfair fight. And would she have had political, or what's the...
Yeah, I know what you
the
mean.
immunity?
I don't think that she would have had any political sway in this, because even though she is a guest, quote, guest, she's basically a prisoner of war, right? I could see there being an inherent risk if this person spoke out of place, regardless of whether she's a princess of her own land or not. She's not in her own land. And to speak out against the king and basically say something like, you know what, this is clearly an unfair fight. She's been poisoned or something. That's almost a direct accusation against the king. And saying, clearly you didn't notice this, so are you too stupid to notice this? Or you did notice it and you chose to do nothing about it, so now you're questioning the king's judgment. I don't think from her position she couldn't do anything that way either.
Yeah.
Without risking herself, but more than herself, a retaliation against her people.
Okay. Yeah. Fair point.
So, yeah, honestly, the word mark spell thing was literally the only thing that anybody could do.
Makes sense.
From the way I see it.
Okay. Princess, would you like to bring us into the next chapter?
She says, I want to show you my butt again. She got her hair all over my notes. Okay. Through her pain, Celaena stands and squares her shoulders. I will not be afraid. The mark on her forehead turning a blinding blue. The king sees it and stands. Nehemia gasps. As fast as Deanna's arrow, Celaena strikes forward and impales Cain with the jagged staff piece. She manages to get him to the ground and holds a knife-sharp remnant of the staff against his neck. If he moves, she'll spill his throat. Councilmen nervously begin to clap. I imagine everyone's like, damn it.
I imagine them more like, holy shit, what just happened? She was gonna die, and she's the victor. What the hell is going on? Like,
I do wonder how many of the councilmen were in on this, or if it was literally like just the king and Parrington, and they're all just there because the king lets them.
I know the couple chapters before, when she first walks out to the fight ring, she does recognize two of the council members, because they had both at one point, when she was Adderland's assassin, they had both hired her for killing and stuff, in order to advance their careers. And they see her, they also recognize her, and they're like, oh shit. So there's at least two there that know who and what she is. But as far as who's involved with Parrington and is under Parrington's sway, we don't get any privy to that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Um. So they begin to clap. The king is forced to name his son's champion the victor, which I think probably was grating on him. Celaena manages to stagger away from Cain. Nehemia collapses. Her guards come running towards her. Celaena tries to also go towards her, but collapses. Dorian races to Celaena, murmuring her name over and over, and through the pain, Celaena starts to laugh. Dorian demands. Okay, princess. I can't read my. Dorian commands for a healer to be brought. Celaena's thigh cut won't stop bleeding. As Dorian glances at Parrington and Caltaine, he misses the look shared by Cain and the king. But guess who did see it? Kale. Kale actually doing some good guard stuff here. Without a second thought, Kale leaps in front of Cain, plunging the sword through his heart as Cain had come up to stab Celaena in the neck. Cain's blood reeked of death and decay, not coppery as most blood is described as smelling. And yeah, you know. Kale goes into shock watching Cain take his last breath. Kale can't believe what he's done. He's taken a life. Two guards help Kale away. Celaena starts talking about someone who helped her take the poison from her. Dorian has no idea what she's talking about. The mark on her forehead disappears. Dorian wonders what any of it meant. He picks her up and rushes her to her rooms. And he's right now just done with it, done with the politics. He loves Celaena and he would burn the world for her. Caltaine is crushed. She watched Dorian carry the assassin away. So her last ditch effort here did absolutely nothing. And she held the empty vial in her hand. What went wrong? Why wasn't Dorian crying over the assassin? Why wasn't she comforting Dorian? Pain erupted in her head, so violent her vision went obsidian and she stopped thinking clearly. She confronts Parrington in front of the king and councilmen, all the while her head pounding, not able to think straight. Parrington denies all actions. Caltaine is dragged away by guards, screaming that she'll kill Parrington. She looks to the king for help, but he looks away. As she's dragged away, she sees Parrington grinning at her. All of her dreams shatter because girl just got screwed so bad, so hard. uh
You know, my first read, I thought, thank God, like, she's finally get what's coming to her. But at the same time, like, you can't but help feel bad because you don't want anybody in Parrington's clutches. You know, like, what she did was horrible and it could have taken Celaena's life. But at the same time, like, oh, nobody deserves to be in Parrington's clutches either. And she's been manipulated like this
yeah.
whole time.
Yeah, when I read it, I was against her in the very beginning when she was just a, vapid court lady.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as it became apparent that she was trying to get away from Parrington and all of that, I immediately switched and I was like, nope, this girl is in for a bad time. And I only basically for the rest of the book just saw her as a victim. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, she is. It makes you wonder how much of that is from her own personality and how much of it is Parrington controlling her and influencing her. Like, if he didn't have that power over her, how far would she have gone just on her own? Would she still have wanted to poison and try to kill Celaena? Or, I mean, because there are people that are, easily susceptible to things like that, and they want power, they want riches, whatever, so they'll do anything. How much of it was Parrington and how much was actually her?
I don't think that was something that she would have done normally. Because even in her struggles against fighting for clarity of the mind, she was trying to resist that temptation that he put out there. And she was like, no, like, obviously I want my competition gone, but that's a little,
Too
that's a
dark.
bit far, but
Yeah.
he was able to persuade her because of whatever control or whatever he's done to her. Um, but I think, yeah, if Parrington hadn't been in the picture, I think she would have been one of those ladies who would have been like, well, I guess I just have to go and find, another prince somewhere, and eventually would have given up.
Yeah.
But she would have bitched about it the whole time.
Uh, so we know that the king of Adarlan has condemned, like, no magic, no healers, anything to do with magic gets put to death. And when he sees the mark on Celaena's forehead, he stands. Like, I'm guessing out of shock or surprise or something. Do you think he knows what it is? And why do you think he didn't have her, like, arrested or killed on the spot? Like, wouldn't you think that he would be like, oh my god, magic, kill her?
Yeah, I actually honestly don't understand how that whole scene ended the way it did.
Especially if, like, a mighty wind came out of nowhere. Like, don't you think people would be questioning that? Like, I get it's winter and it's freezing, but if there was no wind and then suddenly there's wind whipping around and holding Cain in place, like, that seems kind of magical.
Yeah, unless he figured that because she was poisoned, there was no way she was the one doing it herself and that somebody must have been doing it to her. But I still don't see how that whole scene ended without somebody being executed, because a blue thing shining on her forehead can't be anything other than some sort of magic. So unless he looked at it and went, we're going to tuck that one away for later because we don't know what he's up to.
Yeah.
Or was it something that was written and then forgotten about because, like, oh crap, we showed magic on the main character, but we can't have her killed, so we're just going to quietly not talk about it anymore.
I mean, unless his hand was forced because, Kale stepped in and killed Cain, so now he's forced to name her.
That's true.
I mean, he could always have her killed and then make Grave and Renault fight each other since they're off on the sidelines.
Yeah, the whole scene just seemed a little weird with this king who doesn't even like people mentioning magic. I mean, we had a singer who sang a song about magic and then she was killed.
Right.
And this very clearly was magic on a person. So just an inconsistent action by the king. But, we don't get any further insight into that. So it's just hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Just seemed odd, honestly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have this whole thing going on, and then Celaena basically kind of, I feel like she's unraveling because this was her last ditch effort and it didn't work. She's now worse off than she was because there's nothing standing between her and Parrington and what he clearly wants from her. And this particular moment did feel like she was being pushed into saying something.
Mm.
At least,
Yeah.
before it felt like her headaches and her fatigue and everything was being used against her.
Mhm.
Um, unless at this point she is just so far mentally fatigued and gone that she's looking at the vial and she's looking at Parrington, and it's basically like, you told me that this would work, kind of forgetting where she is.
Yeah.
And I could actually maybe see that, because there is still no real indication that he can control or sway her. But
I
if
kind of felt like when the pain erupted in her head and her vision went obsidian, that was kind of him. Like, I just imagine like fingers clutching the mind sort of thing. Like, that was him grasping control of her because it says that she stopped thinking clearly. So I kind of feel like that's kind of him taking control and being like, okay, now you need to act, and you need to act out in front of us. And and her being a lady of the court, she would have handled it more discreetly and maybe even in private with Parrington, but with him kind of clutching her and guiding her, he's like manipulating her like a puppet. Like, you're gonna come and confront me now, and I'm gonna escalate it by raising my voice, and now you're gonna look like,
I think I could see that, stance. Um, but I also can see where she's so out of her element, and she's so fatigued, and this was the last straw, and it was basically the straw that broke the camel's back, because the plan was she would be dead, Dorian would be crying, and she would be comforting Dorian, and none of those
true,
things happened. And
true.
so I feel like her mind, exploding and seeing obsidian is the same as when people get so angry that they see red. But for her, it was just a matter of it was all fractured, and that was the thing that split. And then she just lost it
Mm.
because she was just at her wit's end. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I was looking. I mean, it could be, he could have helped do it, but I think part of his plan has been keeping her so exhausted and just on edge because she can't seem to like rest
Hmm.
and get her opium,
Yeah.
that she just was pushed to the brink, and then she fell off.
You make valid points. I also think I made valid points.
It literally could be either one.
It could be a combination of both. I mean, she was exhausted. She wasn't getting rest. She had all those headaches. That makes a person easy to manipulate.
Well, and we don't know if those rings send out any sort of like, pulsing power, or, I mean, just being near him could be enough to, drive her over the edge. Who knows?
Yeah. Chapter 51. The following day, Dorian stands before his father, wanting to know what was to become of Cale, hoping that he wasn't going to be punished or anything for killing Cain. The king sees no reason to rid himself of a perfectly capable captain of the guard. Dorian also wants to know what is to become of Celaena. The king thinks he should send her back to Endovir, that she is a monster. If she had truly been good, she would have sensed the poison in her drink and not drunk it. So I feel like we touched on this a little bit earlier. Like, there's no winning for Celaena. Like, if she's a really good assassin, she would have caught the poison and not drunk it, but probably would have offended the king. Or maybe it would have worked in her favor. She could have been like, no, this wine has been poisoned. Everyone would have looked at Celaena. That could have spurned the whole Celaena thing earlier. But who knows?
And why didn't they try to poison Cain too? Like,
Right.
why was it just her?
Yeah. Dorian is through, sitting back from his father, but lets slip that he truly cares for Celaena. King tells Dorian he will send her his contract when he is good and ready, and not to bother him about it again. Dorian further tries to make a stand by telling his father that he doesn't think they should go along with Parrington's plan of using Nehemia as a hostage to curb the rebels. The king considers and tells Dorian he will tell Parrington to stop his planning. Which is a little surprising, but we'll take it. Celaena wakes in pain, covered head to foot in bandages and slings. Without the eye of Elena, she has weird dreams of Elena, Nehemia, the demons, and the dead. Who wouldn't? Nehemia visits, tells her that she saved her life. Nehemia has gifts that allow her to see what normally others can't. The bloodbane poison allowed Celaena to see it too, which we talked about. And instead of hallucinating, there was something in Celaena's blood that the bloodbane reacted to, and she was able to see this other world, this in-between world. Nehemia kept her knowing of the common tongue a secret because people tend to drop their guard and spill secrets when she pretends to not know the language. She also wanted a friend in Celaena, hence why she asked for lessons. But her and her family know wyrdmarks, know how to read and use them. It's been passed down from generation to generation. She was aware of someone using them at the castle and discovered it was Cain summoning demons. This whole time, Nehemia had to banish and destroy the demons and clean up Cain's messes every time he would portal one in. And lo and behold, Cain didn't know how to control the demons. That's a scary thought. Nehemia also admits to drawing the wyrdmarks under Celaena's bed. They were for her protection, and without them, the Ridderak would have been drawn to Celaena far sooner. Which makes me question, without them, the Ridderak would have been drawn to Celaena a lot sooner, so was the Ridderak drawn to the champions that he was drawn to for their power, for their strength? Nehemia is also the one that drew open the portal to Elena during Celaena's fight. She doesn't know Elena, but Elena is the one that came to Nehemia's call. Elena had heard Celaena's plea far before Nehemia opened the portal. The not ghost queen was both in and not in this world. She was in the in-between. Like the creatures, she couldn't fully cross over. Lastly, Nehemia asks if Celaena knows what the wyrdmark is on her forehead, and Celaena doesn't. Celaena asks why Nehemia is truly here. Is she here to spy? And the short answer is yes. Someday, Nehemia wants to know how Celaena is entangled with Elena. She leaves to take Fleetfoot for a walk, and she tosses the Eye of Elena amulet back to Celaena. So a lot of things being revealed. Some questions being answered in this chapter.
So one of the questions that I had actually was, so Nehemia was the one this whole time cleaning up the mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that literally if she wasn't there, that when Cain summoned a Ridderak, it would have just been out all the time? Like, it killed the champion, and then it just would have been
roaming the castle,
killing it, like any other person it came across. Like,
that's what it sounds like.
Was the bloodshed limited to just the champion? So it's like every time Cain summons one, kills a champion, and then he is like, oh crap, okay, send that one back through the portal, and then Cain summons another one. So,
like, did Cain not realize that he couldn't control them? Or was he just so like, I have the power, kill. Okay, I got the power.
But that's not what it seemed like when Celaena happened upon him in the tunnel, and he summoned the one because it came through the portal, and there
And it
seemed to
bowed to
be
him.
an understanding between them, unless it was just more of a like, I've come through the portal because you summoned me. Your reward is I'm not gutting you right now. And maybe that's why Cain was like, I'm out. Because he knew if he stuck around that he would also be dinner. Like,
Maybe.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wish there was more explanation to this. I mean, or was the plan to let the demons out, Cain siphons champion's powers, and then just to let these demons loose and cause chaos? But that doesn't seem in line with whatever Parrington and the king have lined up, you know? Like, it doesn't fall into what they have planned, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he had summoned one and Nehemia didn't send it back, would he have then continued to summon more and more? Or did he have to keep doing it because she kept sending them back? Like,
And would he have known? Like, does one demon just look like the rest to him? Like, they all just look the same, and so he didn't realize that Nehemia was sending them back or dispatching them?
or yeah. Yeah, it's a interesting question on what exactly the plan was and how much of it he was told versus just go do this thing and don't worry about it.
Yeah. I also want to know. So, Nehemia tells Celaena that the Bloodbane reacted to something in Celena's blood, and that's why she was able to see this like in between world and the demons and Elena and everything. So does a Bloodbane do that with everybody? Does it react to everybody's blood, or does it only react to certain type of blood? Because it sounded like, because Nehemia also comments further, magic cost him magic. So if only somebody with a magical bloodline, that would happen? I don't know.
It's interesting because when she realized that she took the bloodbane, she knew that hallucinations were going to start. So apparently hallucinations are a well-known side effect of the bloodbane. But is that because only people who have magic, in their bloodline have reported that? Or if you don't have magic in your bloodline, do you just see like regular hallucination?
You just see colors and trippy things.
Does that mean, is it just a bloodbane? Is it all like substance? Like what's the deal with Celaena and her seeing the dark shadows around Cain when she was high on the opium? Does that mean that she also has
Magic in her blood?
magic in her bloodline and the opium gives her an unlocking? I mean, it kind of opens up a question of like, is it just the bloodbane, or is it like these things like you were saying with the shamans? Is it just a matter of if you have magic in your system and then you take this thing that heightens your senses, whether it's poison or opium, which is kind of a poison anyway, right? I mean,
Yeah.
is that what kind of unlocks the ability to do that? It opens up questions on where is the limitation on that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. Celaena awakes the next day and she's in pain, rightfully so. I mean, her ribs should be bruised, cracked at least.
Broken.
Dorian visits and he can't face her. He's been having trouble sleeping. He feels guilty that he couldn't save her. He carefully lies on the bed next to her as they talk. She asks him if he thought she would actually win, and he tells her yes. Ever since he met her, yes. He just wasn't expecting all the feelings to come in between. They kiss, even though it hurts, because they both know this is just, you know. The king strokes his sword, Nothung, leaving Parrington to kneel before him, waiting. He still hasn't sent the contract to Celaena. She was close to Dorian and Prince Nehemia. It could be a risk naming her the champion. He contemplates sending Dorian to the front lines to wizen him up to make him into a soldier. And unfortunately, Celaena is his best and only choice of champion now that Cain is dead. The king traced a wyrdmark on his glass throne. He knows about them, but he had never seen the one on her forehead. He would have to find out the meaning of her mark, especially since he had felt the dead both attack and protect her. So he felt it, but he didn't see it. Parrington admits that he had been using power on Caltaine, but had to relax it a bit as she was showing signs, pale, drained, mentioning the headaches. She had been an experiment by Parrington. Both the king and Parrington wear the black rings. Cain proved the physical transformative effects of the power, and Caltaine proved the ability to influence thoughts and emotions. The king wants to further test its full ability. Parrington, despite himself, doesn't want Caltaine to rot in the dungeon for long. King tells him they will make her an offer she can't refuse. He also tells Parrington to prepare himself. There's much to do in Aurelia, but to stop pushing his plan for Nehemia. Parrington nods, bows, and leaves. So another chapter where we got a bunch of answers to just all the things that we were just talking about. It's like each chapter unlocks the questions that you had in the other chapter, right?
Yeah.
And this goes all the way back to Caltaine in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
You know, because if you remember, I was talking about how she's... So, I mean, I was kind of right, but you were also right. Because she is fatigued and she is beaten down. And that is making her more susceptible to the influence that Parrington is apparently using on her with his ring. So the side effect of him using the influence on her is making her so fatigued that it is making her more susceptible to the influence that he's using on her. Which also leads me to wonder that because she started getting these headaches, if that's why she turned to the opium to deal with it.
Yeah. And that further made her more susceptible.
So you see the slippery slope here where she just... Poor girl didn't stand a chance.
So I wonder if Parrington sought her out and found her... like to be like there must be something part of Caltaine that made her susceptible to his power, and that's when he was like, come to court, I will shower you with dresses and riches and blah blah blah. And she was like, oh, this duke wants to give me attention and money, and he's willing to take me to court is where I can like try to nab the prince, not seeing anything else. And she's like, yeah, sure, I'll show you a little something, something, and, I'll promise you a little something, something if you take me to court. And he's like, yes, girl. Sure. Mm-hmm. But already his power is starting to work in on her.
As I say, she didn't stand a chance from the beginning.
No. And you're right. She was a victim from the beginning. Sad to say.
Yeah, and so then we also learned that the king knows about the wyrdmarks. And so him being surprised and standing up when the word mark appeared on Celaena wasn't so much because he was surprised about the word mark. It was more of he didn't recognize it. And it was kind of like, okay, I can feel the legions of the dead, but I can also feel another dead thing helping her. And then this thing appears on her forehead, and it's like, okay, just what in the hell is going on here? But the word mark itself was not even the thing that, like, concerned him.
It was the presence of the dead wanting to kill her and protect her.
Yeah, like everything else. But he was like, yeah, okay, word mark. I need to learn what that one means, but marks are old news.
Were you surprised to find out that the king knew about the word
No.
marks and the word gates? Saw it coming?
Not at all. No. No, when I had made the connection between the black ring that the king had and the black ring that Parrington had and the black ring that Cain had, I was like, no, the king.
It's all connected.
I didn't necessarily think, oh, the king knows about word marks. But when they were talking about the king knowing the word marks, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
it was not a surprise to me. And I mean, I caught on fairly early that the king was not the good guy, you know. Yeah, his plans are devious and we don't know exactly what.
Yep. They go on.
So, yeah.
All right. Chapter 53. It's been a week and Celaena is healing up nicely and she is wanting. This girl wants her salary so she can start shopping for a brand new wardrobe. Nehemia and Dorian take turns taking care of her. The world stopped when Cale finally entered her room. Things are strained between them as they ask each other how they are. Celaena thanks him for saving her. She also offers her sympathy for his first kill, knowing what it's like. Cain admits he can't stop thinking of it. He asks how Cain knew how her parents died, and she lies, telling him she doesn't know. Cale tells her he is sorry how they died, or tells her he is sorry they died like that. Cale tries to abruptly leave, but Celaena pulls him back into a hug. She could have stayed forever in that embrace, but Dorian interrupts them. Cale pulls away fast, and he leaves. Dorian tells her he has news. The king has made the contract, and she is to sign it tomorrow in his council chamber. 4 years of servitude, and then she's finally free. Celaena looks to the hall where Cale disappeared, wondering if she can catch up to him. Dorian kisses her, and she pulls back. She tells him she can't be with him if she is to be the king's champion. Dorian says they can still be together, they're just going to have to keep it a secret. Because every girl wants to hear that. She wanted him, she cared for him, but a lasting relationship with the crown prince wouldn't end well. He was the heir to the throne. In 4 years, she is going to be free, and she's never been free in her entire life. She wants to know what that feels like. She was disappointed when Dorian said, "As you wish." She wants to stay friends, and he tells her, always. Dorian leaves, letting her know that Nehemia is on her way to tell Celaena the same news. And Nehemia is going to be mad that Dorian beat her. Celaena looks to the window, hand on her heart, whispering the word to herself over and over. Free. I'm not going to lie. I was sad that Celaena broke up with Dorian because I love Dorian. I understand why she did it.
Yeah.
You know, she's an assassin. He's heir to the throne. There's no future. You know, plus, like she said, she's in 4 years' time, she's going to be free, and she wants to fully embrace that and experience that and not be tied down. And the relationship with Dorian is you're always going to be tied to the throne and expectation of council members and the laws and the people. That there is no freedom in that. But I was still heartbroken.
And why would she want to spend any minute longer in the castle with the king that murdered her family?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That's not an option. Oh, he's going to be your father-in-law. Yeah, excuse the hell out of you.
Not to mention, like, that would be a horrible father-in-law. But whoever Dorian marries, like, the first expectation is, when are you getting pregnant? You need to produce an heir. And that would just immediately, like, there goes her freedom. Bye.
Yeah, there's no freedom with, and that's the whole thing is there is there is no freedom with Dorian.
No.
Unfortunately, it's he would have to give up his title,
Yeah.
and would the king even let him do that? I mean, he's got a younger brother, but
But I mean, even Dorian can look at his younger brother and be like, oh no, that little shit should not be heir to the throne.
yeah,
He cannot be crown prince. So it's hurtful, it's heartbreaking, especially for Dorian, because he has truly come to love her and I think respect her despite, her being the assassin and everything. Um, but yeah, he has an obligation to the throne and to the people. And you, throughout this book, what little side stories that we got with him, we see that he wants to be a good king. He wants to be a good person and he wants to do right by the people. He just doesn't know how yet. He's getting there.
he can't yet.
Yeah. But I also feel like there was a language writing change through this. Like something happened within that battle with Cain. And now Celaena is seeing Kale like in a whole new light because I feel like the language in this chapter of her watching Kale and seeing Kale, her eyes going to the hallway to see if she could catch up to Kale, like her heart is already chasing after Kale and has already shut the door on Dorian. As much as she loves Dorian.
I think with Dorian just not being an option, she knows it, he knows it, whether he wants to accept it, that's a whole thing. And despite the hardship that Kale and Celaena have been through, right, with their constantly seeming to like miss each other with their the way that they communicate and everything, Kale, he showed up. They had this battle, she collapsed, and Dorian was there like, how can I help you? But Kale was watching her back because he just, for whatever reason, looked at this entire thing and went, whether that's instinct or training or whatever, but he is the one that had her back and stepped in at that moment where she would have died. And, Dorian was holding her and she would have died in his arms. And Kale didn't let that happen because he was so focused on like protect mode and keeping her safe.
Yeah.
And I think that said a lot to her, that despite everything, the ribbing and the insults and the, everything, when it came down to it, he had her back. And, that says a lot.
Yeah.
So
it does. Especially since she hasn't had that in quite a long time.
Yeah. I feel like that was a very Sam kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just that's all I'm saying about that. Go read Assassin's Blade. But yeah, it's you see the shift, and I think part of that is because Dorian is just not an option being the prince, and Kale showed that he cared, and he cared so much that he was willing to put himself in the way. I mean, if he'd misstepped, he would have been killed.
True.
And he didn't even think about it. He stepped right in and just boom.
Yeah.
So
Do you think Dorian's "As You Wish" is in reference to the Princess Bride?
definitely, especially when he's going down the hill, as you wish.
I don't like. I just saw those three words and I was like, "Oh my god, Princess Bride!"
Yeah,
And then my heart broke even more because she broke up with Dorian. Like,
poor Dorian.
yeah,
He'll be okay though.
or will he? Dun, dun,
Well,
dun.
So going in chapter 54, several hours later, Kale is in search of Dorian and he finds himself back in Celaena's dining room. How the hell did that happen, Kale? Uh, he can't stop thinking about the fact that he killed Cain and the king still hadn't mentioned anything about it. Celaena informs Kale that Dorian isn't there and to not expect him any longer because she's ended things. He tells her he was wondering when she was going to come to her senses. She invites him to stay for dinner and he accepts. Later, Celaena finds herself in the tomb and knew right away that she was dreaming. Although, based on past experience, maybe she wasn't. Who knows?
Dream
Celaena,
walking.
yeah. Celaena often visited the tomb in her dreams. Alina leans against the tomb back in her regular gown. She tells Celaena that she could be great, greater than her even. History has forgotten a lot, like the fact that she was a warrior. She fought at Gavin's side. But Celaena could rattle the stars. Elena tells her that from the king's side, she'll be able to see what needs to be done. Her friends need her, and when Celaena's ready, she will hear the others that cry out and need help. As Celaena leaves, she thanks Elena for saving her life. Elena responds in a whisper, "Blood ties can't be broken."
Our ghost, our not ghost queen is still leaving some riddles.
Riddles. But one of the things I did really want to address, or just I guess make note of, is Celaena is very not Celaena. Elena is very pointed about this thing that history has forgotten. Over time, it has become, Gavin did this and Gavin did that, and Elena was his queen, and that's
She
all
was
she
a
was.
damsel in the tower with the amulet that needed rescuing.
And Elena, in her own right, was a warrior queen. She helped Gavin carve out this kingdom. And it's just, so often we hear about that. I mean, just in our real life, how often do we hear these stories, particularly nowadays when people are really talking about things about, the women who discovered Bluetooth, the woman who discovered Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and,
The woman who wrote Frankenstein.
yeah, exactly. History forgets the accomplishments of these people and
Of these women.
of these women, and it's just a tie-in, I guess. Just you have to remember that Elena was, in her own right, a warrior, and she didn't need no man to save her.
No, she didn't. Yeah, it is interesting. History has forgotten a lot. People have forgotten a lot. And not just with our own women and men taking credit for them, but I think even now we can see in our political landscape people forgetting our history even 50, 60, 70 years ago, 100 years ago. And we're starting to repeat all of this crap again. But It
Yeah,
just sucks.
it's
But I mean, I'm glad Elena came back in the dream state and is continuing to guide Celaena, whether Celaena wants the guidance or not.
I'm just glad that our not ghost queen was actually helpful.
For once.
We went the whole book without her doing anything except being all like spooky and like, ooh, watch for
Okay,
this and watch for that.
but she did say look to your right during the poison test, so
I mean, well, she didn't actually say during the poison test. She just said look to your right.
okay, fine. That fine.
So yeah, spooky. Ooh. And in here, she came out guns blazing. She was like, I got my sword, I got my armor. Y'all better back the hell up.
Yeah. Yeah, she did do a lot during that scene and she helped draw the poison
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Celaena.
Um, yeah, so do you think that her blood ties can't be broken? Do you think that that means anything in particular?
I thought the first read, I thought, oh, that's an interesting sentence. What does she mean by that? Will we get any more of that? Rereading the books, um, it makes more sense. You'll see why later on in the books it makes more sense. Um, and it's also kind of fucked up. So without giving spoilers, I will leave it at that.
When I first read it, my initial thought was, is Alina trying to tell her that she's like a descendant of like the bloodline? Like it without really saying it, you know?
Like grandma came here to save you.
Yeah, I mean that's literally what I was thinking. Like, is Alina being cryptic and saying like, I came to your aid because your blood is my blood, and those bonds can't be broken because of whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but she's so vague about it. I mean, it might not have even been about
Spooky.
her.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, was there a blood bond between her and Nehemia, like, or like, just it could
Yeah.
be literally anything.
Kind of sets up for future books.
Yeah,
Like what is their tie besides this? Like why did Elena come to Celaena in the first place other than Celaena goes snooping around in secret tunnels?
right.
Um so without trying to give any spoilers, and I don't think you would pick this up on your first read, but maybe you did. Um Celaena mentions a couple of her dreams that she's been having, like being trapped inside of Elena's sarcophagus, which is hella scary and disturbing. And also to face a featureless young woman with golden hair and a crown far too heavy for her to bear. Do you think these like are a setup, or do you think they might be letting us know maybe what is to come? Did those trigger anything for you? I'm just curious.
I mean, not in particular, and honestly, I'm not even sure if it's really triggering anything now, even though I'm halfway through Queen of Shadow. So now I'm like, shoot, did I miss something?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. But I figured they were probably just
Dream
just
references.
dream references for, because she spent so much time in the tomb, and she has made reference that even though Elena's spirit is out and about, that her body is in the tomb, and
Yeah.
like, does she rest in there or does she rest somewhere else? you know? And yeah, I mean, the whole like golden hair crown thing, that could maybe be a reference to her childhood, since we just don't really know,
Yeah.
or it could be a reference to Well, it could be reference to anything. I mean, she's dealing with the king and Dorian, and just
A lot.
a lot. So I didn't pay any real special attention to much of that, other than just putting, just she's been through a lot, and she's just having whacked out dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, yeah, my first read, I didn't pick up on that. I was just like, oh yeah, that's some weird ass dreams. I would be dreaming weird ass stuff too after going through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then as a reread and then reading this, to make show notes, I was like, oh, okay.
Will
I
I
might be the only one,
will I
but
get it when I get there?
if you remember, yes, maybe.
Huh.
I could be the only one just pulling this, out of my hat. But to me, it was like a trigger, like, oh my God, is this setting up? Is this. But you wouldn't get it like on your first read because it didn't really pop out at you, and it didn't pop out at me the first time. It was just rereading it now that I was like, oh my God. Like,
Okay.
so
I keep that in mind.
we'll see. We'll see if like when you come to certain points, maybe you'll
I'll
be
get
like,
it.
oh my God. And you'll have to let me know. Let us all know if you got the same like aha moment.
Okay.
All right. So our very last chapter of Throne of Glass. The following day, Celaena is in the glass throne room, ready to sign the contract that would bind her to the king to be the king's champion for 4 years. As she's about ready to sign, the king threatens her, because of course he does, letting her know that there is to be no questioning him, no rebellion on her part. If she were caught, she will deny connection to him. If she ever fails to complete a mission or forgets to return, he will kill Kale. Then he will kill Nehemia. And then he will kill their siblings and their parents and anyone related. And she's like, fuck. As soon as she signs the contract, the king orders her out and to await his command. Kale accompanies her out and tells her he likes the sound of Celaena Sardathian, the king's champion. And when he asks if she wants to know about her first mission, she says no. Tell her tomorrow. And that, my friends, is the wrap up of the first book of Throne of Glass.
Wow.
So I feel like there were kind of mixed things from the king. Like he wants to know, that glowing blue mark on her forehead. He wants to know what that wyrdmark was. And he wants to know why the dead both attacked and wanted to protect her. But at the same time, he's like, if you look at me wrong, you're dead. If you think about fleeing, you're dead. And your friends are dead. If you try to question me on a job I give you, you're dead. So, like, what does he want more? Does he want her dead more? Or does he want to know about the mark and all the other stuff that happened during her battle with Cain?
I think he's being very pissy, like, because he didn't get the champion he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, and as we see very much later, the king gets what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a thing that he didn't want. And he's still going to use her to, to his end. But Cain would have been
a yes man.
A yes man. Unyielding and not unyielding. Unquestioning with just whatever. King says, go kill this person. Cain would have been like, with pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Celaena also acts like that, that just from her character, how she is. And she's going to question, and she's going to rebel in her own way. And because we know that that's how she operated when she was in the Assassin's Guild, when she, she was very clear that she was able to question Arabin on, the missions, and she had rules that she wouldn't break, and the king is not on that level. You don't question and say, well, yeah, but that's a child. And the king says, and is there a problem with that? you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it's going to be a very interesting dynamic, I think, between the unyielding king and the now champion who, what does she do? 4 years. There's a lot of stuff that somebody can make you do in 4 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he is ruthless, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, she has her morals. Even for an assassin, she has her morals.
Which means nothing to a king hell bent on conquering
Everything.
everything. So, yeah. So I feel like the king was just not super happy with the way that things ended.
Yeah.
But he is gonna just make minor adjustments, and he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and
All
then
right.
yeah, I love how she's just like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this today. Tell me tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like, nope.
So, so yeah, that everybody is Throne of Glass. We made it through the entire book, and yeah, I mean, this is a great ride. Ups and downs, questions and theories, and just were there twists in there that you weren't expecting? Were you like me, where you pretty much looked at it and you went, something's gonna happen with this, but I don't quite know what it is. But I know who it involves. And that's how I've been through most of the rest of the series as I've been reading through it. I'm pretty good at spotting when things are gonna go down, but I don't always figure out exactly what is gonna go down or who's involved. Like, so it does make for some nice surprises. Next week, we will be going over the 2 bonus scenes of Throne of Glass. One takes place before Throne of Glass, and one takes place between Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, which is what our next one is. We will post links so that you can read them, and we will also be refreshing ourselves on them.
Yep.
We want to say thank you to everyone who has been listening and enjoying our podcasts on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. And if you like it, please subscribe. We love it. We love seeing just people interacting with our stuff. And again, let us know if you've got thoughts, if you disagreed with anything that we said. Do you think we missed something that was worth talking about? Because we can only cover so much, and I'm sure there's probably tons of stuff in there that we just didn't even see. Because everybody reads the story differently. So let us know in the comments, or you can email us at hello@bookscatsandchaos.com.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Your ratings and likes really do mean the world to us. And if you like what you hear so far, share with your friends and family. You can also check us out on several social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Threads. I signed us up for Tome, so that should be coming out like on the 28th, and just all the social medias.
And
as we head out,
we'll have stuff up on Goodreads too, I think, right?
yes, we will have a Goodreads account. And if you are interested, let us know if you're interested in us doing something on Fable, and maybe doing like a monthly book club read together or something. That can always be an option. As we head out, please don't forget to give some love to our friends over at Cain 911 Rescue. They have been working around the clock to post and share and help as much as they can about the animals rescued from the recent LA fires. And we would also like to give a shout out to Pasadena Humane Society, who, oh my God, they've just been working so much and so hard. They've been, rescuing, treating all of the animals from the recent LA fires, Pasadena fires, and they're trying to they are trying to reunite animals from these LA fires with their family. They're trying to find, I hate to say this, but any remains, scanning microchips, trying to bring as much closure as they can. They do need your help. They do need donations. So we will actually drop both of their links in our show notes below. So K911 Rescue and Pasadena Humane Society.
All right, sounds good. So we will plan to see you guys next time as we go through the bonus chapters.
Yep.
And then immediately we will start Crown of Midnight.
Yep.
So start reading.
Happy reading, everyone.
See you later.